Hello and welcome to another deep dive edition of Football Today. I'm your host, Josh Schneider-Weiler, and I'm joined, as always, by football broadcaster David Goss. David, we've had a little bit of a break, and I'm super pumped to be speaking with you again. Are you excited to talk about who is the biggest fraud? Raul, Iker Casillas, or Florentino Perez?
Wow, that is a loaded question right there. But you would take on all Madristas. That would be something that you'd be involved in.
I know. Holler at me, Madrileños. Holler at me.
At this point, you're Rodrigo de Paul's biggest fan, right?
I am. Dude, he had a very impressive final. But that's not what we're here to talk about, is it, Dave?
I don't know. It could be. That's a pretty promising topic.
We are going to talk about one ex-Madrileño, actually, and that is Rafa Benitez, because the next two episodes, we are going to be looking at some of the managers in the Premier League who have changed places, and there's been a shakeup at a number of really interesting teams in the Premier League. And today, we are going to take a look at the two clubs that I think are maybe the most interesting, because I could see anything happening with these two hires, and that is Rafa Benitez at Everton, and then after that, we'll take a look at Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace. So, Dave, let's first just talk about Rafa Benitez. Ex-Liverpool lad Rafa Benitez.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah. So how did he come to Everton? What's that? There was another ex-Madrileño, another ex-Madrid guy connection. Carlo Ancelotti left to go to Real Madrid. That's how it all kicked off. And then, pretty simply, the ownership at Everton had a long time to think about who do we want to take over. And there were a lot of different candidates that they kind of mulled over. Dave, who are some of the names that were kind of thrown around in there over the last 3 weeks, a month or so?
So I think there are a lot of names that you would expect. Nuno Espirito Santo, of course, who I think everyone interviewed for their roles. David Moyes, obviously ex-Everton manager, currently with West Ham. Graham Potter, who has also been interviewed by, I'm pretty sure, every single Premier League club, and maybe as well every single NFL club, because he's just doing interviews everywhere. And Christopher Galtier, who we've talked about, who left Lille because of their financial issues, but was obviously a much sought-after manager.
I'm going to apologize to the audience for Dave's terrible mispronunciation, as per always. It's Christophe,
nice,
not Christopher. What is he, not French anymore, Dave? And Espirito Santo, Dave.
Listen, if you go out in the round of 16 with that type of roster, you no longer get your accents. So France and Portugal have to earn back their pronunciations.
Okay. So anyway, so those were the other names that were kind of in the mix potentially, but let's, kind of look at how they settled on Rafa Benitez. Like any good hiring, they went to a powerful agent, Kia Joorabchian. So the brain trust who really made this decision, it's just ridiculous when you literally read it back. Farhad Moshiri, who's of course the owner, Alisher Usmanov, who is, their kind of shadow owner, who's, heavily in bed with Moshiri, and whose son actually just got appointed to the board today. We're recording this on Wednesday.
Congratulations for your well-earned appointment.
Yeah, I'm sure he's done a lot to really deserve that. Kia Joorabchian, who I mentioned, a big super agent. And then, of course, another person who put in a good word for Rafa Benitez, who worked with him less than 1 year, Roman Abramovich. So we got, the titans of football expertise, kind of working together to make that happen. I mean, obviously, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But if you read The Athletic, essentially, they kind of boil it down to those four guys hiring Rafa Benitez. So we're going to jump into a lot of different things. I mean, just off the top, Dave, what is your reaction to having Rafa Benitez represent the blue of Everton?
So I think my initial reaction is I guess I would say a fairly corporate hiring of, it's a guaranteed safe hands with a level of notoriety. And so it's not an unknown. And a lot of the hirings at this level, when you talk about right off the big 4 or 5 in your league, whether, whatever of the top 5 leagues it is, A lot of times you can kind of go in one of three directions. You can go with a club legend who maybe is prepared, maybe not. You can go with an up and coming manager where there's a level of unknown and a pretty low floor, but potentially a high ceiling as well. Or you can try and grab what I would say is one of the falling stars, someone who has managed with a higher level. Let's talk about Roma right now with Mourinho, right? And then you try and see if they still have some level of magic left that you can use. But I think there is an extent where it's successful for these teams because of the contacts of the manager and the name that they have. Even if a lot of their successes in the past, Ancelotti still brought James Rodriguez to Everton, which I think was a success for them and is a player that probably wouldn't look at that club.
Was it a success?
I think getting him on that team is a success. And I think that potentially has for that team can be. And so I would say there's probably some, group of players that Rafa Benitez can tap into that Everton wouldn't normally be able to tap into.
Well, I mean, he's got all those contacts at Newcastle, all those great players.
Exactly.
Sean Longstaff is like, my guy's got at Everton, I can get a bumper contract right there.
He's going to pull you the best players out of China, which everyone knows is a feeding ground for most Premier League clubs. But it's Rafa Benitez, right? There are not a ton of names all the time out there that you can say and people will respect all the time. And I think he has one of those names still now to high-level players and agents, even if he can be a bit of a meme online.
Yeah. I mean, Momo Sissoko is by his phone right now. But
you'd have to buy a lot of blue all of a sudden, Josh.
I do love Momo Sissoko, but so like I hear what you're saying, and it's in many ways. I think you are correct in terms of what you're going to get from him. I think like if you look at his career, he is very consistent in terms of his he's not too high, he's not too low, and God, that was really poorly said, but like his consistency is there. Like
he's consistent in his consistency. That's what you want to.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, and then I was like, God, I sound like such an idiot. But like, I can't really think of any big flop he's had. When he went to Chelsea, won the Europa League, got third place. By all purposes, that was a pretty good season.
Were Inter and Real Madrid flops?
Okay, so
when he did the Mourinho follow thing, I'm asking.
Yeah. I mean, you could say Real Madrid was a quote unquote flop, but like he didn't get that much time and they were third in the league, 4 points and I think a game off of Barca. Like, okay, I'm not saying that wasn't a flop, but it's not like he was there for the year and then like finished fourth. Like, and that Atletico team that he was 2 points behind was a really good team. So, I mean, I don't think he's really flopped anywhere. Honestly, I didn't really look too much into the Inter 6 month thing, but I'll give him a pass for 1 6 month stint. Anyway, so like at Napoli, he did fine. I mean, I put it on our little chat that essentially he equaled the 2 years before him at Napoli. The average points in a season was 70 points. He had about 70 points or 71 points on average. Before him, they won a Coppa Italia within the last 2 years. The first year he was there, they won a Coppa Italia. Like pretty much the same before he got there as the same after. Like he's a consistent guy. I think he's proven that. But they're not asking him to be what they were before he got there. They're asking him to be much better. Remember, they're 10th in the league, Dave. Like they finished 10th in the league. Like not 7th, not 6th. They finished 10th. Now, granted, that was only 3 points off 7th, or a little bit, 6 off 6th. But yeah, I mean, they're asking him to do a lot. I mean, what do you think of like the expectations game? Because as you know, like Everton fans, expect a good amount, and Moshiri expects a lot.
So I think that with the club, there's a belief that the sum of those parts could be higher than that. That you don't need a revolution. You need that consistency. And I think from the ownership group, it seems to be that there's a willingness to invest to a certain extent. And I think it's easier with a consistent manager than if you go with someone who's a bit more of a risk. It's harder to convince people, oh, well, this is a project that will be here, that this is worth coming and being a part of, that you can be here for 3 to 5 years. And so I think Rafa Benitez gives you more of a platform to recruit off of. And so I think combined with the belief that there's a level of talent in the club already, and then Rafa Benitez giving you a platform to recruit off of, yeah, you're not going to go out and get Kevin De Bruyne, but there's still talented players that would be willing to come into Everton, especially from outside of England, with the size of the club and the name that Rafa Benitez is. And I think there's an understanding around the world that he treats players fairly. You don't see him, get into these arguments and fights with players where they get frozen out. And as you said, he's had a level of success where you're not going to be fighting relegation if you go and play under him. So I can understand the belief, for example, you said they're 3 points off sixth. I can understand the idea that Rafa Benitez can help your club get that +3, +5 points to move up the table. Now, I don't think he's going to win the league, but I don't know who Everton brings in that makes you feel that way.
Yeah. So I want to focus in on a comment that Moshiri made when he was explaining why they appointed him. He said, quote, "We are appointing Rafa because we believe he will bring success to our club and to Evertonians." Okay. To put it simply, we need to be competing at the top end of the league and to be winning trophies. And I love when I hear people say this because it's like, what trophies? Like, be specific about that shit. You mean the Premier League? You mean the Champions League? 2 trophies you'll never win? Or at least not never, but like not anytime soon. Okay, did you mean the FA Cup? If that was what you meant, like I didn't hear, you busting down doors to make sure that they won the FA Cup every year. And to me, so like this is, I think this gets to the crux of my issue, or not even my issue, but my concern about the club is that the way he's talking is he expects them to get into Europe, into probably the Champions League. It sounds like kind of that's his ambition, and to win. The Premier League or win the Champions League. It's not really clear. Does he mean the FA Cup? Is that would he just be fine doing what Leicester did this year, getting 5th and making Europe? They made the Europa League, not the Champions League, but they won the FA Cup this year. Is that enough for him? And if so, I do think that is a reasonable thing that he could expect of Rafa Benitez over 5 or 6 years. I mean, not 5 or 6 years, God, over the course of 1 or 2 or 3 years. But if he's expecting to go to the Champions League and actually win seriously, I don't think that is reasonable.
But isn't it a stepping stone? Isn't that the only way to get to that next part? Right? Wasn't that the case for Man City, who still haven't won Champions League? But
no, I understand that.
For 12 years, and was the case for Chelsea when...
But it doesn't sound like he's framing it that way. I'm not saying that you're wrong. It is fine if it's a stepping stone. But I'm pretty sure he probably said the same thing for Carlo Ancelotti.
Yeah, and also, there's a level of that's lip service to the fans, which is saying, we will be competitive, this matters to us, stick with us. But I think... to me, and this is someone who I'm not obsessed with just the specific title wins, competing for Champions League and going deep in cup runs, that's a successful club to me.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And so and sometimes that has to turn over with a win. Obviously, for Tottenham, it hasn't over the last few years, and they've been maligned for that. And I think that's okay, especially because you've made those cup finals, so you've had opportunities. But let's talk about Napoli, right? Put together 2 top 4 teams as well as a Coppa Italia win. I think that level of success, if you bring that to Everton, one, it's a step up from what it's been the last few years, which shows that the club is moving in that direction.
That's really hard because, as I said, they were already there. He didn't do that. He didn't improve them.
But then doesn't Rafa Benitez make even more sense as a signing? Because you already believe you're on the right path. And he's
but they're not.
Close
they haven't improved. They haven't improved at all. They haven't gone up in recent years. That's like, so, I mean, no, they haven't. That like, that Everton's fans I've talked to have said they pretty much stayed exactly where they were before Carlo Ancelotti.
Right.
I mean, like, listen, is it more appealing and prosperous than like Big Sam Allardyce? Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that like you need to have that level of concern, but like I don't think this is moving up a lot. I don't think it's getting much better. And you talk about like if we go through his history, he's not really known for maximizing the talent at his clubs and really improving teams. You could say at Newcastle, did he improve them? I mean, yeah, they were literally a championship club. So yeah, he got them up to mid-table, and sure, that was fine. But like before that, at Real Madrid, didn't improve them. Napoli didn't improve them. I mean, we can forget about Inter, right? Like the last time he really improved the team was Liverpool.
Well, that's
Maybe,
not true. The last time he improved the team was
Newcastle.
Newcastle.
I guess, yeah, Newcastle.
So
Yeah,
literally his last job
but,
in the same league.
yeah, I mean, like if you think, yeah, I guess if you want to say that was a great job, then yeah. But like
Didn't they get relegated after he left, or have sat in the relegation zone since then?
I mean, it's Steve Bruce last year we got in like 11th place. Like I mean, granted, they're still they're even worse to watch now than they were under him. But like, yeah, I guess I mean they haven't been that much worse under Steve Bruce, to be honest. Like it's been minimal, but
yeah. How many teams have won the Premier League title in the last 8 years?
Yeah, not many.
So I think I understand that that's like a great conversation, and I think it's fair for Everton fans to hope for that. But
I'm saying I don't know that he can even get like into Europe. Like I'm saying that like that he doesn't have, I don't know, a lot of. Okay, so he did it at Newcastle. He improved them. The 1 year they took him up to the from the championship. That was a move up. They didn't get better after any of those years after they made the move up, which is fair, just consolidating that.
Right.
Point.
And obviously the whole conversation around that was, and the reason he left was because they refused to invest in the squad, which he felt like hadn't gotten better in any way. Which then comes to another conversation, which is I think this level of manager, a lot of them focus, I think, on the players that can come into and out of the squad, maybe more than how they can get more out of it. And you see a lot of younger managers believe that they can change the team, they can affect the way the team plays, and that can improve what you get from them. For example, a Graham Potter, right?
Yeah.
But there's huge risk with that.
Yeah.
And I think you look at a club where if you go backwards right now, it would take even longer, if never, to return. And part of this conversation is you have a new stadium opening up, potentially opening up.
Yeah. I mean, it won't be for a while, but yeah.
It's supposed to be 2025, I believe.
Yeah, that's a while. 25. That's 4 years. Which also gets into the next thing about him is the last...
It's 3 seasons, Josh, right?
God, I'm terrible at doing this.
Yeah, I know, me too. Whatever it is, it's 3 or 4 seasons. That's not that long away. Because
you say that, but
when you
look
talk
at
about
his
teams,
recent career, he stayed at Newcastle for 3 seasons, and besides that, he hasn't been anywhere long enough past. Then he was there for 3 years. He was at Napoli for 2 years, at Chelsea for 1, or not even 1 at Chelsea, not even 1 at Inter.
Yeah, I think the Chelsea, Inter, Real Madrid ones are different than this, right? Those were that weird following Mourinho thing that he did, where he was like the watered down version of Mourinho.
It is something to be concerned about. He hasn't been at a place for a while.
Okay, but here, let's start here. What's a Mourinho team after he left that was not completely ripped apart emotionally and physically, and that has had any success off the bounce? Right? Like he is known for destroying his clubs on the way out. And that's why he gets fired. I think that has to be part of the conversation around Rafa Benitez's legacy going forward.
Well, I think there's a great actually parallel here with him and Jose Mourinho, both because they both got hired this summer, but both because you can really make a case they are, and I'm not saying they are, but that you can make the case that they are managers of the 2000s and not of the 2010s, and won't be for the 2020s because of their style in terms of, a very defensive based style, and not kind of a proactive. which the most, if you look at almost every modern manager, most modern managers are more proactive in the way they approach the game. And the fact that, you said earlier about how like he treats all players fairly. The also what is true about Rafa Benitez is it is his way or the highway. And there's a quote in the Athletic article talking about that, that he is commanding and he's not very collaborative, which, most players now prefer to have some input into how things are done. And you can make the case that both of them are more, managers not for today, but of old school times and not this moment.
But wouldn't you have said that about David Moyes 1 year ago?
So David Moyes, that's a good example. I would say the difference, and by the way, I'm not saying that like once again, I'm not saying because I don't think he's going to fail. Like he's going to be some disaster or anything. I don't. But David Moyes was taking over a smaller club that really, their fans don't expect the same thing as Everton fans. I don't think. Like they're okay being the underdog. Everton, I mean, they have a history. They think of themselves as one of the big teams in England. That's why that comment about your small club when he was at Liverpool was so big, and why so many fans here. I mean, I live in Liverpool. Why so many fans here don't like him and don't want him, or so like I think there's a different. It's okay being Crystal Palace and defending, but not, and not at Everton. And that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think a lot of that's fair. I would say perception is reality or whatever if you want, but Everton hasn't competed for anything in 15 years. So they could say anything they want about how they feel and where the club should stand. But right now you need a level of results. And I don't know that Rafa Benitez is a guarantee on that, but it does feel like the club's in a moment with ownership, with the stadium opening where it's like they think they can grow. And I think even more important than winning something now is to at least maintain a base to build off of. And if you go backwards, it's more dangerous than staying neutral where you are now. And so I think that's where you look at like a Graham Potter situation where there's way more potential bringing him in, but there's also way more danger and question marks.
So what would you, or what do you expect out of him? Like what is that you're expecting?
I think your hope would be that you have some great young defenders who you continue to bring along, and he's able to use his contacts to an extent to help you add to your attack and keep Richarlison in this group. And then you look at this team and you say, there are 5 players who play deep in Euros who are starters on this team. A guy who played in the Copa America final as a starter for Brazil, up and coming attacker in Calvert-Lewin and some other pieces. Like, I think that this is a group that if it were to reach its potential as what's already there, that they should be better than 10th place. And then your hope is that now, and I think the rumors are already around Wilfried Zaha as well, potentially coming in, which would be shocking to me. But if it were to happen, if you were to make any sort of move like that, then you have the potential to take a step even higher, and then you're competing for 6th place. And I think if you can spend a year competing for Europe with the external view of the Premier League and with Everton being quote unquote a bigger club, which ever you believe or not believe, that there is space to then recruit, especially from outside the Premier League, to make this team better.
Yeah, I think that's all fair and pretty reasonable expectations. I think my concern would be is the expectations they have is higher than that. But I think if that's what they got, that would be a big win for them. I mean, I think my biggest concern with the club is just their short-term nature and who's making all these decisions. I described at the beginning, if you read the Athletic piece and, trust their reporting, which I'm going to for this, that, some of their biggest decision makers were not the, head of football, which is Marcel Brands. It was a bunch of dudes who, as far as I know, have no expertise in football. I mean, the fact that Roman Abramovich is like, him giving his validation to Rafa Benitez, to me, is a pretty big worry. Um, their decision-making process on saying that, he has this sort of global standing that, the owner wants is a little concerning, because while you want them to thrive as a business, it should really be a football-based decision. And, there's a quote that I got essentially talking about how chaotic the process was between Moshiri, Bill Kenwright, and director of football Marcel Brands. And to me, that would be the big concern, is that they don't really know how to do this and make these big decisions. Because what if it doesn't work again? And it just, to me, I thought about the parallel between like Liverpool in the early 2010s after Benitez actually left, and they went downhill, and they had Roy Hodgson and they had Kenny Dalglish. And it was only when they got a young, transformative manager that they were able to get back up to where, they felt that they belonged, which was, in Europe and in the Champions League, and even contending for a title. And my big concern is like, okay, like I think if they tread water here, fine, but you're going to need to find the transformative manager at some point. And, this is just kind of kicking the can down the road. But mostly they just stay near, they make short-term bets. A lot of their players are kind of has-been stars, or recently have been has-been stars. And, at some point you got to, try something with a young manager who's got a bit of ambition. They went from Sam Allardyce to Carlo Ancelotti to now Rafa Benitez. And it's like, all right, when are you going to be, build a project? And maybe he can build one. Maybe he can. But to me, I don't see any project building here. I see like short-term chasing success. And I just don't buy that. Not in the game today. Not with how competitive the Premier League is.
And I think that's all great, but also Jurgen Klopp went to a Champions League final. Jurgen Klopp was not a random up-and-coming manager. Jurgen Klopp is a generational top 5.
They had Brendan Rodgers to get there. That's what I'm talking about. Brendan Rodgers, after he got them, no, don't look at me funny.
Yeah.
Like, he took them to the Champions League. He got them to second place in the league, and they almost won the title that year.
Okay.
And he got them back from in the 7th, 8th, 9th, ends of the Premier League back into the, top, 5, 6 ends, and gave them an exciting project to then lure someone like a Jurgen Klopp. And what I'm saying right now is, Everton needs someone like a Brendan Rodgers more than they need.
How did the Brendan Rodgers thing end for Liverpool?
Yeah, he didn't end great. Like, he wasn't like, he got
fired, right?
At the end, after their terrible 5-1 loss to. Oh no, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because Jurgen Klopp took over in November or October. And if Jurgen Klopp doesn't take over, we don't know where that club ends up. Because it took Jurgen Klopp a little while as well to rebuild that roster in the way he wanted it. I don't think people consider what Klopp took over as the platform for him to be successful. So I get what you're saying, and I think that's fair. Obviously, the season where Liverpool finished second under Rodgers was incredible. It felt like a little bit of a flash in the pan. It didn't feel sustainable. And I think that was shown by how much roster turnover Klopp went through to build the team that he ended up winning with. Right?
Yeah, but I'm not even talking about to get to the Premier League. Anyway, in my opinion, they need someone to really kind of take a big project on and to build the team over the course of many years and raise them a noticeable level. And I just, in my track record, don't see recently, granted, we talked about his Newcastle. I'm a little bit more split on you on that. But I don't know if he's going to be the guy to really elevate and, make everyone much, much better, because I haven't seen that. But agree to disagree. Dave, I know the next guy you know a lot about.
Let's go to a young up-and-coming manager that you're going to be super excited about then.
Yeah, man, because this is actually the guy I'm talking about, the type of, hire that I'm talking about. Patrick Vieira at Crystal Palace. Dave, you know a lot about him because of your ties to MLS, and he was in New York City for a good while, and so I'm going to kind of lean on you in this section to kind of talk about his background and yeah. So can you fill us in on kind of what he was doing at Manchester City, and how he started his career as a coach?
Yeah, so he went to Manchester City, obviously finished as a player there, and then became the head of major parts of their academy, which, as we've seen now, they've built out to be one of the more successful ones in the world. And he was a big part of changing the way that they coached and changing the way that they developed players and starting to build out the systems that Pep Guardiola came in and I think has now seen the fruits of the labor. But a lot of those ideas of positional play and possession that the young players were learning and developing came through Patrick Vieira, and then City Football Group put him in charge of NYCFC, which when he took over, it was a year and a half or 2 years into the project, had been a failure completely. And within 2 months, he had turned it around to they played the best quality in the league and were one of the 2 or 3 most successful teams in the league. I can say when you meet him, I've met a lot of the bigger personalities in the world game. He holds the presence of a room as much as anyone I've ever been in, a situation with. Like, he comes in, everyone knows where he is. He carries himself impressively. He shakes every person's hand, whether it's your PA or your audio guy or, the heads of other teams, whatever it is.
Dave, how does his hand feel? Is it hard, soft? What are we working with?
Soft but firm. Incredible.
Oh yeah.
It's just one of those people where whenever you're in a room, you always know where he is. Like, he just stands out, and he's not super loud, but he has that presence, which I think he had on the field. The way he carries himself, and he jokes around, obviously speaks multiple languages, which in this country, as well as now in the Premier League, super helpful for players to feel comfortable and feel around him. Obviously, I don't know, people know this. The first move he made as the coach of NYCFC was to trade some assets, because that's how it works in the US, to draft Jack Harrison out of college, who now starts for Leeds United and, of course, is on the books at City Football Group, which at the time, the understanding in the US was that players out of college weren't worth anything, that college wasn't a high level. And so that just shows you the work he puts in and his understanding of young players and how to develop them. And Angelino as well came on loan and played under him, who's now been sold to Leipzig. And NYCFC was his first opportunity to play at a first team level. So he's had that type of success. Then he went to Nice, which made a ton of sense as a move for him. It felt like that mid-table French club that had ambitions that he could help raise. And I think from the external point of view, obviously I'm not in France, what was frustrating was it didn't feel like they played his brand of the game. And so with NYCFC, it felt like they didn't have better rosters, but he believed in what they did so much that they were able to elevate themselves. And at Nice, a lot of that seemed to fall apart. And he sort of succumbed to the pressure, is what a lot of people feel, that I know that I've read and talked to around that group, and sort of lost his way. And so that's the question mark around him now is, can he stick to his guns even when it's bad, to ride through those bumpy stretches to then hopefully get to where his teams have the capability to go?
Yeah, and just to go back to your talking about his time at NYCFC, he went from the team being in 17th in 2015 to 4th in his first full season, and then 2nd in 2017. That's in the regular season. So, from what I can tell, and I remember him being a success as well, is that he got the team better and better when he was at NYCFC. Now, that didn't happen at Nice, which you mentioned, but I do think there is reason for optimism, at least in part of his resume. Like, this is not some ex-player that has just rested on his coattails and never been successful as a manager. And even though, despite he wasn't really successful at Nice, I mean, they still finished, in respectable positions. Not like, they were terrible. I think they were 5th and 7th when he was there. So it's not like they were, a train wreck. So, yeah, I mean, so that's kind of a little bit about his background. And I think it's important. And, I do want to go a little bit more into that, about, how he will, be at Palace. But, just kind of how he got to Palace, just a little background, because much like Everton, this was not an easy process. And, that's pretty much true of Tottenham as well, who we'll get to in the next episode. He wasn't their first choice, wasn't even their second choice. Nuno Espirito Santo, he was right up there, and Lucien Favre actually signed terms with them. It looked like that was done. I remember thinking it was done.
I think Palace thought it was done.
Yeah, everyone did, and then he just backed out at the last minute because he didn't want to come, and so they just kind of pivoted to Patrick Vieira, and he knows that too. I mean, it's not like this is one of those oh, does he know, does he not? This is this was out in the open. And so we can kind of get into how he fits, and the big thing that is talked about this move is that Palace is trying to focus more on youth players, and he has a lot of experience with youth players. Dave, does that seem like a harmonious match?
So if anyone's not paying attention, for Crystal Palace, you talked about short-term ideas and in players and front office. For Everton, I think Crystal Palace was the model of this over the last 3-4 years. And so last year, coming into last season, there seemed to finally be an edict from the top down of this team just needs to get younger. I think they had the oldest average squad age going into last season. And then obviously they went out and signed Eze, who was a phenom, in year one, which I don't think was expected. That was a long-term signing. And so there's an idea and an understanding from Crystal Palace that the way the club has operated is not acceptable, will not continue to be competitive, and doesn't make sense financially, because you buy older players, there's no sell on, and then you have a lack of success on the field, then there kind of really isn't anything going for you. And so I think for Crystal Palace, this fits perfectly with what they say they want to do. They say they want to get younger. They want to give their academy players some opportunity, but you see with the Eze signing, and so far the few signings they've made this offseason, that there's an idea that they can get good young talent from outside of their club, bring them in, giving them a platform in the Premier League to be successful with Crystal Palace, and then potentially be sold on after. And I think Vieira fits all of that. He understands how to develop players. He gives young players confidence to be able to play at a level that they can be competitive early on in their careers, because that's one of the biggest issues is, can you get through those early bumps and have enough success to believe you can make it at the pro level? And I think the other part with Vieira, and we talked a little bit about it with Rafa Benitez, but his contacts are in the City Football Group, which is that giant umbrella of clubs as well as young players who are looking for opportunities because that first team is so loaded. With Arsenal as well, his former teammate Adu is the one right now running all of the football operations. And then in France, where it feels like there's a ton of available players because of the financial situation there. And then back in the Americas, where there's a ton of talent that you can pull from. So on the surface, I think, Josh, this hits a lot of those points that you were talking about in the last piece, with he can be part of a project to remake that club and change what the identity of Crystal Palace is.
I couldn't agree more. And it's one of those things. I'm actually not saying that I think he's going to necessarily succeed. I could see him failing, but to me, it matches, kind of their vision. They had Roy Hodgson. One of the last episode we did of the old style of football today was about Crystal Palace and what will they do. And I remember speaking to Matt Woosnam of The Athletic, and he talked about who are they going to, essentially hire. And it seemed like Sean Dyche was the number one choice. And
that excites you, huh?
I respect Sean Dyche. I think he's actually a very good coach. You couldn't find a more different approach to football and, two different hires than Sean Dyche and Patrick Vieira. And they ended up choosing Patrick Vieira. And I'm really happy for it, for all the reasons you said. I think, something you mentioned that really should be sold a little bit more is, his connections with France. The French league is in a whole ton of financial, mess, and there are players to be had there, and his name will carry weight there. He's a World Cup champion with them. I'm sure all those young guys either watched him or their fathers told them about him.
Everyone knows who he is.
Yeah, he's Patrick Vieira. So I think that will like carry a lot of sway to get some, good, decent, young French players to fill out the roster. You mentioned they signed Michael Olise. I probably mispronouncing that as well. To kind of complement, Eze, and I do think they will keep Zaha, and so like, all of a sudden you could be looking at, a pretty fearsome threesome, towards the end of the season, or maybe next season, and then if they can build on.
For everyone out there who doesn't remember, Eze tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
In the second to last game of the year, whatever it was, and that is
brutal.
That is like an 8-month recovery process. Plus, then
unless you're Belgian, and then it's like 5 or 6 months. But maybe they'll give them whenever they get Benteke.
They have the most cow placenta available, so they can get over it quicker.
But yeah, like so like I do think that like if they can survive this season, that would I think they could really build something with him. And there's one other thing I wanted to mention. I do think it is powerful that there's they're going to have Nuno Espirito Santo is the other coach, black coach in the league, but he's got African descent. But I do think it is powerful to have like a black manager be in the Premier League, and especially in South London, in that area where like there's a huge population of black players, and I do think that's important. I think that's might resonate with some kids and help, and I just think that's a good thing for the sport, and important because it's so rare for there to be a black coach in the league. Like it's almost like you literally can almost count them on one hand. I think the last one of note was like Darren Moore and then like Chris Hughton.
Yeah, it's pretty shocking.
Was that Darren Moore was a caretaker, and Chris Hughton, it's just not. Let's be honest, he's not really that famous and known. I mean, not that he isn't known, but like what I'm saying. He's just not as popular and well known as Patrick Vieira. So I think that's a really nice little thing for the league, and I hopefully also for South London, like so.
And when you look at it and you just look at who's getting hired, I think Vieira is more qualified than what a lot of the managers that have been hired. So I think it's great that he gets this opportunity, and you hope that he's kind of had this situation where he obviously knows the Premier League well. He had success in New York. Maybe the lack of success at Nice helps him, right? Because you can learn from those mistakes and the issues that you had.
And give some motivation. Yeah. Some real,
it's a different
drive.
role. We didn't explain that. Lucien Favre was the one who was at Nice before he got there. Yeah. And he had them third place, I think, was his final season. And so while Nice had okay results, as you said, the expectation was it was a club on the rise that was going to compete and that he was going to be able to continue that. And which is why it's a bit of a coincidence that Favre was the one who basically, I don't know, dropped out of this job. And then Vieira is the one to replace him once again in that situation, which, by the way, I don't know who Lucien Favre now thinks is going to hire him. Because if you get this deep down the process publicly and you drop out, it's hard for a club to then trust.
Well, I mean, I think it has to be a club, in like Germany or a place he has contacts, like a place that people that know him. Or
Switzerland, potentially even right now.
Yeah,
like I think
Swiss.
I think he was unfairly judged and treated at Dortmund, but he doesn't handle things outside of his team well. Doesn't handle the media well, and he didn't handle this process well. And so I think no one has done more to tank his stock than he has himself. But that's a whole nother issue that we can deal with.
We'll follow that up in the next episode.
Yeah, we could deal with that on another episode. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of excitement there with Vieira. My understanding is they believe they're on the verge of bringing in 2 City players, one on loan, one as a signing, that are 20 and under, and potentially some Arsenal loans as well. And then they'll start to, you'd think, outside of Olise, start to work on some transfers. You believe they'll keep Zaha? Do you believe that's the right thing to do?
Well, I think it's undoubtedly the right thing to do. I mean, that's the easiest way for them to screw up, in my opinion, this entire thing is that, like, he's, like, easily your best player. And if that, I mean, I already think that they're at danger of going down. And to me, as long as they stay up, that is success this season. As long as he can, like, get his ideas across and kind of build what he the culture that he wants. I mean, to use a really open, vague term, but and as long as they stay up, like if they get relegated, that's it. That's like a disaster. But why sell Zaha? Like I don't care what dollar you can get for him. It's not more valuable than staying in the Premier League. So I wouldn't sell him. Not a chance. And then fair enough. Next season, okay, you'll have Eze back. You can sell yourself on that, and maybe Oluisi or whoever they sign this summer. But I would not sign or sell Zaha at any cost. Yeah, I just wouldn't. And I mean, imagine what that does to Patrick Vieira. It's like, okay, you're gonna have to keep us up this year with Benteke and a 19-year-old from Reading, Andros Townsend, and some other youngsters. Like, no, you need a main guy.
Yeah. So the calculation you have to make is, and I think you said it completely right. Zaha being your best player, is that more valuable to you than most likely to reinvest in the squad? You'll need to sell him to bring in players of any quality at any other position. So the question being, is your team better with Zaha in the group and probably weaknesses around him, or the money that you get for him to reinvest into the rest of the squad? And I think you're right in keep him for this year, because also look how late on in the process you are. You're already in preseason. Vieira took over late, so he didn't have a ton of time to plan out what does his Crystal Palace side look like. Obviously, he knows his football ideas, but not how it works in this group. And so you would probably then end up overpaying for the players you want because the window's starting to close and you're heading towards the season. And two, then how long in this season does it take to settle those players in? Right? Because it's not instant with those guys.
And also, which is also really important, we also have no idea how good Wilfried Zaha can be when he's actually playing on an attacking team. You said he played good football at NYCFC. I'm saying Patrick Vieira's team played good football. It's supposed to be relatively possession-based as far as I know. And, quite attacking minded, not like overly attacking, but attacking minded. Zaha has been, defending most of his time under Roy Hodgson. Could he be much better under Patrick Vieira? Could Patrick Vieira really elevate him? It wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying he's going to be the top player in the league, but if you told me, Zaha scored doubled his goals this year, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I think you're right. I think the conversation with Zaha and the idea has to be, let's have a successful year this year and give you that platform to move to a better club if that's what you want. But we can all be in this together, and I think that conversation can also be, we believe that you can be a key part of a different style of team going forward. One last piece on that to close out for me on Vieira is, and this is how amazing but also ridiculous football can be around the world. NYCFC plays at Yankee Stadium, which is a baseball stadium. It's basically known at this point their field isn't even regulation size. It is smaller than what FIFA says is the minimum that a professional football pitch can be, both length and width, but mainly width. Vieira's teams used every single inch of that field to spread teams out and play with the ball on the ground, which is, as you would expect, I think Barcelona, we know, right, has the widest pitch in the world because they want that space to play. So Vieira played that way on a minimum size pitch and had massive success over the course of his 2 years. So I'm kind of excited to see what he can do, in a professional stadium.
As am I. I mean, but I'm also not deluded into thinking that this could also end really poorly.
Yeah, agreed.
Because, I just had a look, and he's actually the third least experienced or second least experienced manager in the entire league after Mikel Arteta. His coaching experience, even though he has 5 years of senior professional coaching experience, that's still the second least in the league. So, yeah,
I think that's an
actually, sorry, it's third. It's the third most, but still, it's not. Yeah, it is a concern, but I'm still optimistic that if they can stay up, and I still think they will be able to. Yeah, and not only that, I really want them to. I want there to be a fun team that is just like full of young, exciting players in this league, because it doesn't feel like we have one. And I would love one, especially South London. I went to a game at Crystal Palace once, and it was fantastic. Really enjoyed it, and those fans are great. And it would just be great if they could just be, finish 10th, fine, in future years, but just have like super fun young players. Yeah, that's my hope.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the other piece that stands out to me is, and I mentioned it before. So the rumor is that Morgan Rogers, who's a City young player, could be coming on a transfer, or a full transfer, and then Claudio Gomes, who's supposed to elevate and replace Fernandinho at some point in central midfield, could be coming on loan as well. And then Eddie Nketiah has been brought up, obviously, because of his connections to Arsenal. Can a club be successful operating heavily on loans of young players from other Premier League teams? Right? Because we've heard Ferran Soriano talk all this time about we need second teams. We don't have enough space for our players to develop. Obviously, CFG, which we've done on the show, has gone out and bought all these clubs. And I think Vincent Kompany at Anderlecht has gotten a decent amount of players from City as well that he's been successful with. So I just think I'm not saying that that's good for the game, and I'm not saying I want it, but it's interesting to see if that is part of this project, just how it plays out.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I mean, to me, that's why I chose these two. To me, I think they're the two most interesting teams that have new managers this summer, and I can't wait to see, because I do think anything is possible with either two. But I think this has been a really, really good chat. Good to talk to Dave. It's been a few weeks, and especially on this come down from the Euros. Although we have the Olympics coming up, so
and Gold Cup, everyone lock in Qatar versus Panama in Houston after a rain delay. That's where the game's really built.
Yeah, that's really the most watched. Going to be the most must see game of the summer. But
after the Italy double.
Yeah. Well, just a pleasure as always, Dave, and we'll talk soon. The music for this episode was provided by Blue Dot Sessions, and you can find more information about the music in the episode show notes.